welcome all to AIMS Bhopal. My greetings, my colleagues, my faculty, my students. They send greetings from AIMS Bhopal. Now, as we know that the from microbiological point of view, it is very important that we should know that what coronavirus is, which causes this, causing this epidemic. So this is a very small, tiny RNA virus, and it belongs to Coronaviridae. It has many family members in this, about 39 family members. So many of the people might be thinking that it is something new. No, it is not something new. There are several colleagues or members of the Coronaviridae we know of, but of course, this got mutated from the SARS coronavirus. And that's why many of you must be knowing that it is also called as SARS-CoV, that is coronavirus 2. So the coronavirus first is called as SARS because it came mutated from the SARS coronavirus. So that's why it is called SARS coronavirus 2. This is very, very tiny virus, as most of the viruses are, like about 120 nanometer only. Peculiar thing of these coronaviruses, all for that matter, that they are having club-shaped glycoprotein spikes on the envelope, which you can see on the right side of this slide, but I will show you a little more on the next slides. And that is the reason that it is known as crown-like or coronal appearance, and then they are all called as coronaviruses. Now, as I said, that they are about 39 viruses, but I would like your attention here that there are alpha, beta, like here you can see this is alpha family and subfamily. This is called Coronaviridae is the family, and then these are the subfamilies. So alpha Coronaviridae, then beta Coronaviridae, gamma and delta. This coronavirus belongs to this here. You can see here, so SARS and then 2019 coronavirus. So this belongs to subfamily of the Coronaviridae, subfamily beta. So this is important that how many of the people they are having many questions in their mind that from where it came. So it obviously it is very close to the coronaviruses of the bats, and there are many other coronaviruses in various animals. So wild animals, they harbor many types of viruses. One of them are coronaviruses also. So it is important that sometimes whenever I talk, of course today's talk is not on the public health and social changes or environment, but whenever I get opportunity, I also talk on the environment and changing earth. But today is only on diagnostic, but one word definitely I would not leave this opportunity to without saying that obviously the environment is changing and we are destroying our environment, and then probably some of the regions they can be attributed to environmental invasion by the human beings. Now, as I was saying, so here these are the, if you can see, these are the spikes. So these spikes, they are, if you can see, like, if you see old kings, so this is crown-like things, it appears. And then here you have the membrane protein, nucleocapsid here. This is the RNA. And then, there are some other antigens also, they hemagglutinate. So this is important to understand that you might be reading in very social media, newspapers, and many other things that, the coronavirus is causing embolism or thrombosis, means coagulation of the blood. So that is also one reason that, this is because of this hemagglutinin antigen. So this is also very, very important. And then, of course, envelope proteins. So these are the very important structures, substructure, even though it is very tiny, but it has many constituents which are very, very important for pathophysiology. Now, of course, topic is diagnostic, but it's also very important that we must understand that how the virus spreads from one person to another. This is a typical dark ground, what we call the microscopic photograph. And then here you can see that once somebody sneezes or even talks, right side this is during the normal talk and left side is a sneezing. So how coughing and sneezing. So how far the nuclei of the droplet, which are infected with the virus, these droplets, which are usually, as Dr. Kaur also said, that they are about 5 nanometer size, and they can reach to any distance about more than 2 feet. But bigger droplets, what we call droplets, which are bigger than 10 micrometers, they settle earlier. They settle earlier. So that is the reason that why we call that the people should maintain the physical distance. I don't say social distance, I say physical distance. So we should maintain. So the bigger droplets, they will drop down very close, that with within the radius of about 3 to 6 feet. But the finer particles, they can travel little more, and it will also depend how far they can travel. This will depend on the air velocity and the direction of the air. Here also on the right side, if you can see, this is also normally what we talk. Sometimes it is not important that when we sneeze or cough, then only, of course, the quantum is huge. But on the right side, if you can see, this is also normal talking. This was recently about 15 days back. This was also wonderful, video, which is I can show, but it is probably it will not open. So here the normal discussion or talking, what we talk like in normal discussions, there also the droplets be excrete in our voice or in our surrounding. So this is very important, and therefore it becomes important to understand that how the infection spreads from one person to another, and from microbiological point it is very, very important. This is again colored photograph, that how it can travel in the when you sneeze or cough and you blast the saliva. So that is very, very important to understand. Now it is immaterial. It came from the sneezing or coughing or by normal talking. What happens, that how the virus multiplies, that it is important that most of the human beings, we have the this angiotensin converting enzyme receptors. So these receptor, all viruses across every virus, because I am sure that most of you must be knowing that viruses, they cannot survive on their own. They are non-living, but once they come into contact of the living things, they become live. And for that, these viruses, they must get inside the living mechanism of the body, living machinery. So what is machinery? Machinery is inside the cells. So by any hook or crook, they must reach inside the cell where machinery is, they generate the things, and they are what we call living mechanics or machinery. So these receptors, these receptors are very, commonly found in all cells, minus RBCs. In all cells, particularly epithelial cells, these receptors are very high in quantum, and the most abundant quantity of these receptors are in the endothelium of the lungs, followed by the intestine. And of course, they can be found in any other cells, but not in RBC, fortunately. So what happens, that whatsoever, the mode of transmission, but if it comes into contact, which is obviously the respiratory route, so these cells, they start from our nose itself. So from nose onward, the whole of the nasal cavity, nasopharynx, then lungs, all are obviously, all cells, our epithelial cells, they are having a huge number of angiotensin converting enzyme receptors. And these receptors, obviously the virus will go on these receptors because they are abundant in quantity. So the virus need not to search or, side away. It will have enough opportunity. So definitely it will get a good number of the receptors. So immediately after receptor, this will invade the cells. Through receptor, it will go inside. It will release its RNA. As I said, it is a RNA. And then, as I said in the beginning, that we have the living mechanism, machinery in our cells. So this will incorporate its own RNA and then start multiplying, because the audience is not a microbiologist. So obviously, I will not give more details. But what happens, that it multiplies inside, it converts its RNA into DNA, then again RNA, and then it comes out in the proteins and RNA. They are again synthesized, and this comes out. So what is known as exocytosis. So new viruses, once it is there, millions of viruses, they will come out in the excretion of the infected person. Now, once obviously infection is there, then there can be many consequences. One is, of course, there is an infection and the patient is clinically symptomatic. You will be surprised to know that more than 50% of the patients, even if they are infected, they will not develop any symptoms. So for the public, I don't know if the lay people are listening to this, this is very, very important to understand and to teach others also, that half of the patient, one study carried out in Iceland, and they found that half of the patient, even if they have exposure, they will not develop any a disease, even mildest. Remaining out of the remaining 50%, those who are infected, they might develop very mild disease or just symptoms like which are just body ache or one-day fever. That's all. It will go off, or only coughing for a few days and then it can go away. While the remaining about out the 50%, 80% will go into that. Remaining 20%, they will develop little serious disease. So they will have fever, they can have the coughing, and they can have body ache and other things. And then of the 20%, only about 2 to 5% patient, they will go to critical condition. Means critical condition, when we say, then obviously these patients, they will have pulmonary edema or pneumonia. They can have thrombosis, they can have heart attack, they can have GI bleed, they can have various kinds of things. So in X-ray, typical the critical cases, they will have typical findings of the ground glass appearance. So in CT and X-ray, you can find out. So as I said, about 50% and about 80% of the 50%, so about 90% of the patients, even if they are infected, they will recover or they will not develop any disease. Remaining 10%, they will have severe disease, or they might be admitted in the hospitals, or they come for the hospital on their own. But only few patients, they will obviously have the serious condition. And of the about the remaining those who are critical, it depends, usually it is about 3% people, they will die of the infected and critically sick patients, I am saying. In India, it is the fatality rate is about 4%. In some other countries, it is up to 9 to 20%. But highest is about 20% and the lowest is less than 1%. Laboratory playing rather very, very crucial role in the diagnosis of corona, because as I said, except 3 symptoms, sometimes these symptoms, they can mislead to other things. But most importantly, those who are not having any symptoms, there is no other method by which you can detect the coronavirus infection. So therefore, the laboratory also, they must be very much equipped. And I am really, it was a wonderful that they could cope with in so quickly in Cambodia. They could do it in our country in the beginning, and for that matter, in most of the Southeast Asian countries and Africa. In the beginning, when the testing and screening of these patients started, and I am saying the authority as an administrator of a very big hospital, we were having a real problem. As our honorable member of parliament also, he did mention that yes, in the beginning, that was in March and first week of April, we were not having the personal protective equipment sufficiently, or if at all, they were very, very poor quality. But fortunately now we have our indigenous products. And therefore, why I am emphasizing that laboratory also, like those who are screening or those who are caring in the nurses, the doctors, the technical staff, those who are in laboratory, they are also equally exposed and they are at risk. And therefore, they also need to have the personal protective equipments for them. Now, then the biggest question is that irrespective the patient was serious or not. So there are in India, I don't know in Cambodia what are the criteria, but in India there were the 3-4 criteria that you have to have travel, international travel in last 10 days. So that was the previously when we started this. And then you should be symptomatic, that these symptoms I said, that cough, high grade fever, and then the other some body ache or something like that. And then the third criteria was that you should be symptomatic healthcare worker. Slowly, because in India, Indian Council of Medical Research is the apex body which guides with the Ministry of Health, Government of India in center, that what are the guidelines, how to test, whom to test, and what are the various protocols. And then this protocol was obviously, because international flights were obviously closed in India 24th March. The RNA targets, because you have to have in the PCR also various targets or genes which you want to amplify. To make it more specific, at least 4 genes are targeted, but combination of at least 3 is very, very important. So many companies earlier in the beginning, there was only one company in Germany which started this molecular test, that is RT-PCR. Later on, many companies from other European countries and now in India also they have started. South Korea also started, China also started, now America has also started. So you should have at least the envelope, that is E gene, then nucleocapsid N gene, S gene. 3, these are most important. You can have one of them, either ORF or RDRP. So 3 plus 1 of these. So this is very, very important. So you have to have these 4 gene targets. That is crucial. Now, what sample you should take? Ideally, if you see the bronchoalveolar lavage, which is having highest sensitivity, which is 93%, but by no guideline, bronchoalveolar lavage is advised. The reason being because you have to have bronchoscopy, and obviously bronchoscopy generates huge amount of the the droplets and the chances of contamination of the whole laboratory or the endoscope room. And then of course we have alternative, that is sputum, but you will be surprised that all around the world we are collecting nasopharyngeal swab and throat swabs, but both are having very poor sensitivity. Then recently one company in USA, they also started using saliva, but even after the very recent review I was reviewing day before yesterday, we didn't find any how much sensitivity it has. Also another sample is a stool sample, which has also been shown to have about more than 57% sensitivity. Now, how this sensitivity can be correlated? If you see that in the first week, it is very, very unlikely of the infection. I'm not saying the symptoms. So after symptoms, this is before symptom, there is very unlikely that the patient will come to you. But in cases of contacts, when we were searching for the people, those who are coming from the international flights or from the other countries and contacts, they were screened. So here, obviously, these were known as contacts. So even though they were not having any symptoms, but they were tested, it was compulsory. So here you can see within 2 days of the infection, the PCR can become positive if you are using nasopharyngeal swab for PCR. And of course, you can also isolate the virus. So these 3 tests, and of course, as I said, bronchoalveolar lavage nobody is doing as a standard, but if you are doing with the controlled condition, of course, that will have the same kind of detection. So either the nasopharyngeal swab or the virus isolation for doing from the same swab, you can have either by PCR or by isolation. And then of course, after symptoms, the patient who is symptomatic, you will have all these 3 possibilities. You can isolate the virus in the culture, or you can amplify its genes using any RT-PCR. Now, after that, what happens that after 2nd week or so, This may be a controversial because in south of the Korea and China, some cases were reported, but later on it was found that they were the remaining genetic material, as Dr. Kaur also said, that genetic material actually not the reinfection. So they were found to be not reinfection or reactivation, but the genetic material which was false, you can say false positive RT-PCR. So that remained. I am not covering this antibody. I will come later on the part of my presentation. So here, the point is that if you are searching for the contacts, of course, these molecular tests are good, but if symptoms are there, then also they are good. So first, after infection, up to 14 days or so, they will be really very good and high sensitivity. So time of sampling is very important, Dr. Kaur also said, and I am again re-emphasizing. Now, various companies, as I said in the beginning, this was a European company, but again, it was a huge burden on the European companies because they themselves, they were having a lot of demand and they were not able to supply the kits. And then, thanks to China and Korea, nowadays, if you see that most of the kits, they are being supplied by these two countries, China and South Korea. And these, they are having obviously at least the three, genes, and they can also detect the other viruses. So they are single tube tests. They have come up recently, and they have seen earlier, as I said, that you have to have at least RDRP is a must, and you have to have at least 3 genes, but they are having 2 genes only, and they say that it is equally good. So now you can have these kits available in the market. Now this slide, I think it is very, very important that if you see that what sample you are taking, if you are taking respiratory samples, or you are taking a stool sample or serum, these are the 3 samples you can think of. Urine, nobody has as yet tried, and it is also not expected, but definitely these 3 samples, they are known to be used. And if you see that they can remain positive respiratory sample up to 40 days, if you can see here, but average is about 18 days. Similarly, here also stool can remain positive up to 60 days. So that is something one has to understand. And then many times this is very important that clinicians also, or those who are program managers, they must understand. So these slides are, I think, very, very important. So again, then if you sub-analyze these samples according to the condition of the patient, then you will realize that even in the respiratory sample, which is remain positive, but if you see the patient is having mild symptoms or severe symptoms, and here you can see the severe symptoms, obviously they will have many, many days to remain positive, and they will be highly positive. In mild, obviously this will be very few days only, and they will obviously they will heal the infection. Same is here in a stool sample and also in the sputum sample. So this is very, very important, because the mild samples, what we say, mild symptomatic or asymptomatic, they will clear the virus spontaneously very quickly. But severe cases, obviously, because it has already the pathology has set in the lungs. So obviously this pathological, until otherwise, these epithelial cells, they will continue to shed off, and then with the cells of the epithelium, they will continue to excrete the virus in their samples. That will continue. Similarly, viral load, if you see in the 3 samples, the highest viral load will be obviously in the respiratory samples. Very undetectable, we can say, but undetectable levels of the virus will be found in the serum. Again, if you see in the same way, as I said in the previous slide, here also, obviously, the severely diseased or having multiple manifestations or complications, particularly the pulmonary pneumonia, or those who are having thrombosis or something like that, or those who are on the oxygen support, they will obviously have huge number of the viral load, which is very, very important. And the others, they will have very low load, and sometimes they can be they cannot be detected because the viral load is very low. And then again, from severe to mild, how from days to they usually they go down, and then they develop the viral load goes down from severe to mild, and then the asymptomatic or when they recover from the disease. So obviously viral load plays very, very important role. Now, these days, many times this slide I put because many times many people they ask that what is the cutoff limit of the viruses or virion, what we call which can be detected in most of the RT-PCR which are available these days. These days, quantitative RT-PCR have become available, but in India, I don't know, in Cambodia, and but some companies in China and some companies in South Korea, they are exporting to European countries, I am aware of. So, but in India, we don't have as yet because we are struggling with the diagnostics. We are not bothered about the quantitative viral load issues. But now, because we are doing some clinical trials, so for these clinical trials, obviously we need this quantitative RT-PCR kits. So now we do have that these companies, like Takara is one company, they claim that they can have as low as 5 viral copies per reaction. So in one tube, you have to have at least 5 viruses or viral, RNA that can be detected. Usually, right now, most of the kits they are having 50. So 50 viral, particles in a reaction tube. That is usually standard. Most of the kits they are having, but as I said, now we are having better kits available. Now, other than RT-PCR, one can think of or one can, discuss. That is recently, very, very recently, I can say in India, only last week, the government of India imported the cartridges of the CFID. I am sure that most of you must be knowing that those who are working on tuberculosis and HIV, they must be knowing that CFID has been known as a game changer, which in tuberculosis made a big, change in the diagnostics and detection of the rifampicin resistance. The same company came for the HIV, hepatitis C, and hepatitis B virus detection. But here, now recently, they have come up with the Expert Express, what they call, and this is for the COVID-19 detection. This is sensitive to be compared in our laboratory, and we found that the concordance, what we call, is 100% with the RT-PCR. So this is the beauty of this is in tuberculosis also. And same thing is here for the coronavirus, that the sample processing is inbuilt in this. So that is very, very important, and that makes it different. And probably this may be the very quickest. The RT-PCR usually, because you have to have RNA extraction separately, which takes huge time, sometimes, a few hours. And then, of course, you have at least, 90 minutes or so reaction in the RT-PCR. So overall, it takes about 5 to 6 hours. But this can give you result in 30 minutes, so including sample preparation and everything, in 1 hour maximum, you can give results. This probably, but of course, like RT-PCR, you cannot run many tests. In most of the laboratories, we are having 4 modules. So you can run 4 samples or 4 times or 6 times you can run. So about 24 to 30 per day. So Government of India now is going for the using this Gene Expert machine. Machine is same, cartridges are different, to diagnose coronavirus infections in the district level. And they are taking this opportunity to pitch in with the expert machines every district in India is having for tuberculosis. So only cartridge will be different, but the same machine can be used at every district. So now, today itself, our Honorable Minister of Health, Union Minister of Health and Family Welfare, he discussed and he declared that from next week or so, all districts, they have this facility to diagnose coronavirus infection using these CFID cartridges. Now, even if we have discussed a lot about the what genes and other things, but it is very important that how to interpret the test and what are the points of caution. That obviously, as I said, that in RT-PCR, those I don't know, so I will not give much emphasis because probably you are not from the molecular background, but the CT value is more important. So on the basis of CT value, tests are reported positive or negative. And as I said earlier, some of the slides, mild cases, they have obviously higher CT value, and the severe cases, because they are having more viruses in their samples, they will have lower CT value. And then, of course, usually you have to have, within 48 hours to 3 weeks, as already showed to you, so they will remain positive. And important thing is that if you recollect my previous slides, RT-PCR positivity does not necessarily indicate replicating virus, because recently there was a publication in JAMA. They said that even if RT-PCR positive cases, in no case they could isolate, means culture the virus after 9 days. So all the viruses, even if there is an infection, this will become, of course, after resolution of the symptoms, it will remain unculturable, but of course RNA you can detect. So that is not necessary that RT-PCR is positive means it is multiplying inside the body. Similar is also true that RT-PCR negative does not rule out that the patient or the person is not having infection. As I said, in most of the situations, we take nasopharyngeal swab or throat swab, which I showed to you that they are having very less sensitivity. So it is very, very important to understand. Then again, there are whether the sample was taken appropriately or not, and then what was the viral load at that time, and then it can remain up to 3 weeks, and then of course sometimes it has also been seen that one day in my experience we have seen that one day RT-PCR was negative, second day it became positive. So next slide probably show you that how it happens. Now survivability is very, very important. That this I already told to you that after 8th day of infection, very unlikely you will find that the virus is culturable, means it is not multiplying. And that is the probably reason that government of India and many of the governments like UK government earlier also decided that after 10th day of the infection, the patient may be allowed to go. And then very recently, yesterday only, government of India also decided that those who are mildly symptomatic and then after recovery of their symptoms, if they don't have any symptoms and they have been in the hospital for 10 days, they can be allowed to go back. Even you may or may not test them. So without testing, this is the presumption of the government and the task force of the government that after 10th day, the virus will not be culturable and it cannot transmit to others. So that is very significant finding, and this was published recently in JAMA. So now to my earlier, I said that I will show you the slides. So if you see here in this slide, you will very interestingly, you will find that the same patient sometimes is coming positive and negative. So one day it is coming positive and next day it is coming negative. So why it happens? Because it is intermittently it is shedding in these samples. So this becomes very crucial, and for all laboratory physicians and of course our treating physicians, they will may or may not understand, but for laboratory physicians, it is very important to understand that it is an intermittent shedding in the sample. So it is quite possible. You need not to be disheartened that no, yesterday it was. Understand and explain that how it happens, and it is common. It is nothing wrong in that. Of course, it will add if your sampling error is also there, then that is another factor. But as such, even if the controlled samples are taken 2 days or 3 days, you will find differences in the shedding of the virus positive. Now, little bit about the rapid antibody-based test for the diagnosis. I call it, and very recently I published an editorial, I think it is a bigger epidemic of unscientific practice. Why I am saying? Because the antibodies, as Dr. Kaur also said, that antibodies, many countries, they started, particularly the China and Korea. But government of India bought several thousands and thousands of the kits with the aim that they will be used for the serosurveillance only, underline serosurveillance only, not for diagnosis. The purpose is different for antibody test. For epidemiological purposes, for the public health point of view, it is very important they can be used, but only in low endemic areas where you want to say that if there is any unknown or hidden case, in those cases. But what happened in India, on the urgent basis, the government of India allowed the import of these kits. And you will be surprised that in India, our corporates and the illegal marketeers, they brought thousands and thousands of these kits. So government banned it, but still in Indian markets, they are still there. And people are misusing these, just like they did in the cases of tuberculosis. They were using serodiagnostic for TB. So that happens. Definitely the antibody test, they are no, big no for the diagnostic, of course, not for prognosis. So diagnosis and prognosis, no, big no for the coronavirus, but of course, only utility is for serosurveillances. Now, why I am saying so? Because the reason is that if we say that this is important, because if you see the IgM and IgG, which are the antibodies which we see in these antibody tests, very recently, this study was last day only, I took it. So if you see that in the first week, only 27% patient they will be positive by antibody test if you do. And these are all RT-PCR positive. And here IgG, which is another antibody, most of the ICT rapid test or POC kits, what we say. So this will be only 3.3%. And so first week overall, because the kits, they have IgG and IgM both. So combinedly, the kit will be able to detect only 28% of the cases if you are testing the blood in the first week of the symptoms here. These are the symptoms. Second week, little bit better, half of the cases you will detect, but actual utility comes only after 2 weeks. So this is very, very important, and therefore it is important that they should be used for only surveillance. By this time, the patient has become already aviral. So there is no virus in the sample anywhere. So this should be used only and only for surveillance purposes, that how many of our patients got infected and cured. So that is the only purpose they should be used. And why, again, the previous slide I said to you that the appearance of, you see the IgG here, this is a detection here, this is window period, you will not be able to, so this is asymptomatic stage, you will not be able to. The detection level will be somewhere here only. So this you will come in 14 days to 21 days, and even the IgG you will get in convalescent type period. So this is the only period which is by that time, the virus, as I said, if you remember, I said after 10th day, there will be no virus replication. So thank you very much.